Got the band back together again. Last time I saw you it wasn't Israel, was it?
It was in Israel. Well, the weather feels the same. So we're here in Houston, so
It's humid as shit.
very humid.
So if I'm schwitzing, audience, you'll see why.
Yes.
Yeah, last time we were together was down in Israel together. You were a great host for the
Thank you.
True Future. What was that? What was that? Season 4? Yeah, season 4. And we got spoiled. We were, gosh, I got the best of Israel with you. You were the best host ever. And we got inside Medex Ventures, which was exciting. What's happening there right now? We're going to get to Exact in a minute, but I want to see what else, how the rest of the little children are doing there.
You know, it's great. I always say, first of all, thank you for having me, as always. It's always a pleasure, and giving you my thoughts, right or wrong, just having the stage to tell you what I think about the future of surgery or healthcare. When COVID started, we actually said, let's invest. A lot of people said, stop operations, slow down. We actually, at the Medex Ventures Group, we said, this is the perfect time to find opportunities. And that's what we did over the last 16 months, 18 months. We actually increased our engagement in innovation, in early stage ideas. And COVID actually increased the pool of opportunities we have. People thought, oh, well, there's not going to be a lot of opportunities. Guess what? All the telesurgery, the remote procedures, talk about lung health. All those areas really exploded over the last 18 months, mostly due to COVID. The beautiful thing is we already had the infrastructure in place, as you've seen at the Medex Accelerator, at the Medex Ventures Group, to support new innovation. So although we had a company that was sold, so Endoway is one, actually,
That's right.
our first portfolio company at the incubator was sold about 3 months ago. It was hard to part ways, but sometimes you gotta let them live and grow on their own for a better opportunity. But we had companies like CAPS Medical, which is our selective cold plasma ablation, that fits again to this whole notion, how do we remove the technical skills of the physician from the procedures to allow them to focus on their intellect skills. And the selective capabilities of CAPS is really attractive. So CAPS graduated and raised round A, and it's a standalone company. We have another company that unfortunately I cannot mention its name, but is just raising a round A, very substantial round A, and it's going to graduate and be on its own. We included about 4 to 5 additional companies. Some of them are in the lung health area. Some of them are in the telesurgery area. So this whole COVID really created for us opportunities to grow and build our portfolio not only around robotics, but around smart technologies. You want to call it minimal invasive, whatever you want to call it. But now we have a portfolio that it's not only a standalone companies, some of them can act as anchor companies to future technologies we'll bring in them.
And talking about anchor technologies, and let's go to some of your philosophy that you've introduced to the market. I think you were the very first voice in disposable robotics. You always had that concept that while there's a portfolio of robotic solutions, not everything has to be $1 million large footprint in the middle of the OR. And Exact is one of those companies, Exact Robotics, where that one isn't disposable, but it's a robot the size of a laptop that solves a number of problems. And what's the problem it's solving right now?
Multiple. So again, I'm going to go back to where we are today. Where we are today, we are relying on major variability in physician skills. And it doesn't matter if it's in urology, orthopedics. In our case, we started with Exact, with interventional radiology. And the variability is really wide because not only the physician skills are very different between one person to another. You know, either it's how long you've been practicing, were you born with it or not, but also as you go through an interventional radiology or percutaneous procedure, you're going through soft tissue, the patients are awake, the patients are breathing, you're using flexible tools regardless if it's ablation, biopsy needle, drug delivery, and now you add to this mix the variability with the physician skill set. That's what we're doing with Exact. We are removing the variability of the technical skills of the physician to allow access to the target. And once we're there, then the physician can really put their intellect skills and say, do I need to do ablation? What type of ablation? Do I need to do a biopsy? What type of biopsy? How much do I need to take out? And Exact facilitate these capabilities. So number one problem we're solving is the accuracy. Get to the target. When you met me last year, we just started, well, actually we start commercialization this year. We already have over 250 cases in both preclinical and clinical. Our accuracy is less than 1.7 millimeter. That's smaller than the head of a pin. Very tiny. That's number one. So everybody's saying, wow, the accuracy is amazing. What does accuracy mean? People don't really grasp what accuracy means. Yes, it's amazing, but it allows you to go after smaller targets. I don't know how many people, how many patients know that when they go see a physician and the target is 1 centimeter or less, most physicians don't have the skill set to go after it. So you know what they're telling the physician?
Wait till it gets bigger.
Wait until it gets bigger and get back to me. Why? Don't we want to diagnose the patients earlier? So smaller targets can be achieved through this accuracy that we have. How about recurrences? The fact that you had a procedure, you went home, and then you get a phone call saying, well, you have to come back. We missed the target. That happens. It happens anywhere between 10% to sometimes 30, 40%. So removing the variability of recurrences. So that's number one. Second one is the consistency. When you start a procedure today, in the CT room, the MRI room, you know when you start, you never know when you end. You may enter the body 10, 18, 20 times with the same needle. You may need to turn the patient multiple times. You may need to have multiple scans, not with Exact. In all of our cases, it's one shot to target. So that brings what all hospitals are looking for, return on investment. Why? Because if now I can tell you that a procedure will take you 30 minutes consistently, you can plan your day. And I can tell you example, about 2 weeks ago, we got a phone call from one of the sites that bought Exact from Florida, your neck of the wood. And he said, I'm upset. I said, okay, why are you upset? He said, I just waited an hour and a half today with nothing to do. I said, what happened? He said, usually I schedule 90 minutes for cases, so I scheduled 3 patients. But with Exact, I was able to finish all 3 of them in 90 minutes. He said, so I had an hour and a half. I wish I scheduled another patient. Isn't that huge for the hospital to get more patients in? Isn't it great for the patients? Eliminate the waiting period. And then eventually you take Exact and you talk about, is it a platform, a true platform? That's the efficiency in my opinion. It's no longer one robot that can do one procedure. And then guess what? It's not only one robot to do one procedure, but it's also taking your entire room, your entire staff. How about a robot that can do multiple procedures and you can move it anywhere you want? You want it with the MRI? Move it to the MRI. You want it with the CT? Move it to the CT. You want to do a manual procedure? Just take, you said a laptop, actually it's smaller. Exact is the size of an iPad. Just take this iPad and put it on the side. That's what Exact is. You said solving. I want to change that and say that's what Exact is bringing to the table. That's what Exact is changing. Because it's way bigger than just solving what Exact is doing, in my opinion.
Is the industry ready to take that on, that mindset? How much convincing do you have to do? Do you show it, and is it a one and done there? Do you have to convince the current interventionalists that this is potentially a threat to them? What have you come up against so far in regards to moving this through the market?
So you said industry. So I just want to make sure that we differentiate between the industry, meaning corporate America, corporate Japan, corporate Europe, whatever you want to call them, and the professional industry, you know, the surgeons, the physicians, so on. I think from a corporate perspective, they're so into business units and P&L that when you get the robot that goes across business units, it's kind of like take them off balance. But is everybody going to always try to compete just with Da Vinci, Intuitive, or they're going to try to explore holistically? And that's where I think is going to happen. When it comes to the physicians, we rarely get pushback. And the beautiful thing about Exact is that each physician that we present Exact, they find their own niche. There are some people that are really big on ablation and multi-needle placement, that it's a challenge. Some physicians spoke to us about their physical strain. The fact that I push needle in and out, biopsy, ablation, my back hurts. With this robot, I don't touch the needle. How about when COVID brought these old challenges of cross-contamination? We do have sometimes questions, oh wow, with this robot, now everybody can do this procedure. And what's wrong about it? Why does the most experienced interventional radiologist should do a simple biopsy where we have places like in Sarasota, in Florida, where a nurse practitioner is doing the procedure? In 10 years, we're going to have a shortage of about 100,000 physicians in the US. Those are the ways to enhance the capabilities, not only of the top 10% that in their hands they get the best results, but everybody that comes behind them. We did have one very strange, in my opinion, feedback that he said, I'm a little concerned having this robot here because we are a teaching hospital and we need our residents to do all of their procedure manually. Well, respectfully, I disagree. It's about the patient, and you need to let your residents understand the best tools for a specific patient. Because think about it, Joe. If 30 years ago, the general surgeons would have followed the same line and said, we can't do laparoscopy, we still need to do laparotomy, then we will still do a 30-centimeter incision for a simple appendectomy. It just doesn't make sense. But overall, we see really amazing increased adoptions for Exact. And the funny thing is, once they use it, they want to use it for more applications. So just the last 60 days, with 2 accounts, we did over 50 cases.
Wow.
And they want to do more. They want to do other areas. So it's there.
You've always been provocative in your approach to solutions, especially on the, let's call it digitally enabled side, because I don't want to just default to robotics all the time. And you've got other platforms that you're involved in that are, in fact, let's call it robotic in nature or assist in nature in the peripheral vascular market as well, right? And that is a very unique proposition.
Yes.
With what you've got there. That's one that's a game changer in the eyes and a huge threat to others. So can you chat about that? Are you able to chat about that at all?
Yes, a little bit challenging. It's a public company,
Yep.
so I can share what it's in the public eyes. And you always brought this to my attention, and I completely agree with you that one of the challenges we see is access. Now, I see access in 2 ways. One access is the skills of the staff, physicians, technologists, and so on. But their other access is really the technology itself. And sometimes people are saying, well, we don't have $1 million. But I just learned that sometimes, for example, when you buy a CT machine, it costs more to build the room around the CT machine than to buy the CT machine. Isn't that amazing? So it's probably cost almost the same money to build a room around Intuitive Surgical than to buy the Intuitive Surgical. So we need to find a way to give access to anybody around the world. And the only way to do this, in my humble opinion, is to get rid of the capital equipment. But the access, it's not just the money. And that's what Microbot Medical is doing. So you said peripheral, it's actually in the entire endovascular space. So it can be peripheral, it can be cardiac, and it can be neurovascular. What really is going to happen, if you really can take the capital equipment away, it will allow you access in terms of, A, the money. But think about a different approach for access. Think about stroke management. Will you agree with me that stroke management is the holy grail of
Sure it is.
endoluminal surgery?
Sure it is.
But when you have a robot that now a patient is on the table, and you heard the phrase saying, time is brain, patient is on the table, and now you have to prepare the room, to prepare the robot, and you need to take 20, 30 minutes to start a procedure, you will get 0 access. You will get 0 adoption because you don't have 30 minutes to wait. But when you have a disposable robot that is on the shelf and it takes you 30 seconds to take it off the shelf, it's sterile, you open it, you put it on the patient, and now you can use telesurgery and you can have an expert in stroke management guide whoever's in the room how to do the procedure. Now you got access. And that's where I see the elimination of the capital equipment come to play, not just the money, but the access to procedures that with capital equipment, you will never get an adoption.
Earlier we were chatting about this, and you're giving a talk in a little bit about this, and I haven't heard this subject broached before, where rightfully so, we've got these great clinicians sitting up on a stage, and they're artists in their own right. And that's been the liability as of late, pointed out, is it's not scalable.
Yes.
And it sits in his or her hands. And we celebrate them, and we should, because they save lives. You said something before, and I want you to say it is, you can't wait to see the day until who's sitting up on that stage.
So you're putting me on the spot, but I'll say it anyway because I believe in it, right? So as I was waiting to come and interview here, I was watching the people present, and great surgeons. You know, they present, you know, how they, with their hands, they were able to go around this celiac artery and that area. And I'm thinking to myself, how many people can actually do that? Why we keep hearing in my hands? Because it's not about your hands, it's about the patient's. And when I look at it and I'm thinking to myself, how can we take what you can do and have it in the hands of nurse practitioners, PAs, physician assistants? As you asked me the question, I'm waiting for the day that I will see nurse practitioner, physician assistant on the stage showing the same procedure that I saw today using new technologies. And why is that? It's because we are going to have a gap in physicians in the US. We are going to have an elderly population. Population is getting older. We have long waiting time for procedures that we just can't wait for them anymore. And you don't need to have the experts to be in the room from the beginning of the procedure until the end. I can give you an example with Exact. We got to the point that in one of our sites, the nurse practitioner is doing the entire procedure, and in some cases, the interventional radiologist is walking in for 2-3 minutes just to look at the trajectory, confirm that, and he's out of the room. Now, he can focus on the more complex procedures. He or she, it doesn't matter. In that case, it's a he. He can focus on the more complex procedures. He can focus on getting more patients, and so on. So to your question, yes, I would love to stand here 2-3 years from now, and instead of just having physicians, seeing nurse practitioners, physician assistant, and at that point, we can allow, go back to your word access, we can allow access to the skills of this top 5% of the world here to everybody. And the only people that will benefit from it will be the patients.
So, you know, that represents a hub and spoke model too for us, right? So if we have these robots that can be somewhat ambulatory, and we're starting to introduce the ambulatory surgical centers are starting to come out of the ground like crazy. We're going to have a shortage of surgeons, and maybe that surgeon only needs to be present in a hub and spoke sitting in a center and having 30 procedures being done in the same time he or she does one, and they're there just in case, and we figure out a daisy chain that allows, in case there's 2 emergencies at once, we have redundancy. I love that idea. And I think it's very real, and it's the only way we're going to solve access and cost and value and the crushing 18% our GDP is getting.
So probably the CEOs of the hospitals are going to hate what I'm going to say now, but in my opinion, hospitals should be for emergency only.
Very sick people, that's it.
People think that, and my mom is one of them. My mom was in a hospital last month, and I called her, she said, I've only been here for 5 days. My answer was, you already been there for 5 days. Mm-hmm. That's way too long. Why are you in the hospital? It's a true story. Mm-hmm. And I called my friends in the hospital, and they got her out the next day. But that's because I know people in the hospital, so they did the test and they got her out. But instead, she was there for 5 days. Mm-hmm. So hospitals should be for emergency only. And we should be able to leverage people such as physician assistant, nurse practitioner, the great technology that we have, just as you said, as a center and hubs, and we have them. MD Anderson, right here in Houston, I believe they call it 12 satellite clinics. Mm-hmm. Perfect. Mm-hmm. But the problem is, they still have the experts go there every day. Right. And it's not sustainable. But if you have the ability that the expert's going to be at the center, at the control unit, let's call it, at the hubs, you're going to have, I don't want to say the lower level, but the lower level.
Sure, drive the competency down to the lowest level you can sustain it at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then get the procedure, get people in line, be able to diagnose early, treat them early, and patients will benefit, and guess who else will benefit? Our healthcare system, which is definitely need to be changed.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, as always, my friend, I love our thoughtful, provocative exchanges. I could
My
always expect those from you.
As long as you throw me out the door.
I don't think so. I need another partner in crime.
No, we gotta believe in what we do.
Yeah, agreed.
If I didn't believe this, I will still be where I
Playing
started.
basketball.
Or in corporate America, which, I learned a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
But you were a pro basketball player
I
too.
was. Not very successfully, but I was.
Doesn't matter. You played pro.
Yeah. I think the White Man Can Jump movie is about me.
That's
So
true.
we'll see.
I'll see you, man.
It's really good to see
Thank
you.
you. This is Joe Mullings from the SDTS in Houston. Be well.